Be careful who you allow to speak into your marriage. This is important.
And this has kind of got some layers to it.
Yeah.
Like I know when we are first married, I made the mistake of going to people that were friends or peers to seek marriage advice or complain about my husband. And these were people that did not know how to give me good advice.
Well, they loved you, but they didn't know me.
Or they loved me and they didn't like you. One of the two.
That's
yeah,
true
they
too.
might know you
We
but
had
didn't
those.
like you. And you had people that loved you and didn't like me.
Yeah, and I would go to them.
Yep. And so they
And
would.
you're always going to get the worst counsel when you go to people like that.
Yes.
What we learned is the most.
But wait a minute.
Okay.
And no, I want to even go a little further with that.
Yep.
We did have some friends that we went to that loved John and loved me, but we were putting them in an incredibly awkward, uncomfortable position because they were young and they weren't mature. And maybe they were even struggling with some stuff themselves. And what we found is when we brought our problems to them, then we had resolution, but they never saw us the same. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, I remember.
So they never
all of a sudden
saw us.
weren't friends anymore.
Right. And so that was also not a good choice. Even though they loved both of us, they were uncomfortable with both of us after that. So we started to learn and pray that God would give us people that could speak into our marriage that were wise,
And
that
older.
were older, and loved both of us.
Further down the road than we were. And it's amazing now that we've been married 40 years, if a young couple comes and they're going through a marriage problem, when we've had it happen, Lisa, we don't see them any different. We still love them. We realize this is life.
Remember possibly the same stage.
We have compassion.
Yes.
We did the same
Yes.
stupid things
Yes.
that a lot of young couples do. Hey, I just remember when we were first married, there was a couple that was like the model couple. Like they never fought. And they said they never fought.
Yes.
And they were always so complimentary of each other and almost a little giddy around each other. And we
would
felt
go
like
eat
failures
hamburgers with them. I remember them at People's. We ate hamburgers.
I know,
with them.
we would feel like utter failures, right? And then all of a sudden, 3 years later, they're divorced. And I remember trying to talk to them, and they didn't even want to talk. The guy barely wanted to talk to me. And what we found out is they just bottled it all up. And one day it all exploded. And, I just believe that if they would have had an older couple, they could have gone to and said, hey, we've got these situations going on. We need help right now. I think they would have been in a different place because there were seasons, Lisa, that you and I didn't think there was any hope.
Well, and going back again, I don't know that when we were first married that we did not go to a church that had healthy outlooks on marriage or marriage conflicts or telling us how to navigate marriage conflicts. And so we didn't have anybody to talk to. So we were talking to the wrong people about the right things. We needed to have conversations, but the wrong people about the right things. And then we pretended like everything was perfect in front of other people because we were in a church setting. So we just acted like magically when we hit the church parking lot, we stopped fighting. We were like, praise the Lord. And then when we left, it all started again. And we felt very hopeless. We felt very isolated.
Mm-hmm.
We felt very ill-equipped. We either felt ashamed because we thought nobody else is wrestling with these things. And then there were some people that we really looked up to that got divorced. And I remember that was so confusing to us because we'd heard these people say their testimony was that God brought these people together and they would be up on the platform. We were like, God put them together. And that couple got divorced. Then a couple of years later, another couple got divorced. And we're like, wait a minute. If they're not going to make it, how are we going to make it? We are struggling. And I do remember feeling very, very hopeless. So what would you say, John, to somebody that's listening to us and say, that's where I am right now?
I would say this, that the thing that really set me free is that when I made a covenant at that altar, I made that covenant with God that I would take care of you, irregardless of how you treated me. Now, I am not saying,
Regardless.
regardless of how you treated me.
No, I just
I
wanted to
am not
celebrate it.
saying for somebody to stay in an abusive situation. There's physical
And
abuse.
it's so tragic that we even have to say those things, that those kind of things would even happen in a marriage setting.
Children's lives are at risk.
Yeah.
No, just you need to get healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about is when you don't get along. It seems like everything creates tension. It seems like little things are big things, and it just seems like you don't get along at all. The spark is gone. It's not there. You got to go back to the fact that you made a covenant with God to take care of this person. And usually when you're there and there's no spark and all that, it's because you've been selfish. Selfishness will put the fire out in romance faster than anything else. I believe that with all my heart after now 40 years of being married. Anytime we went through seasons that are bad, I can always point out to my own personal selfishness. And that is what
sure I have
I
part in that.
believe quenched the hope, quenched the fire. Now, Jesus was our ultimate hope. We both knew that. We said, hey, we're going to honor God. And even if we have to live together and not like each other, we're going to live together. But God healed our marriage
But
and
it's
made
better
it much
not
better.
to live a lie.
It's
I mean, that's
better.
like,
It's better, yeah.
So you want to fight. You don't want to live a lie and like just survive. And
Right.
and one of the things I found to be incredibly profound was we did a marriage conference a long time ago in London, and when I was researching, I discovered that when they did these interviews with couples that said they were in a bad marriage, and then they reconnected with that same couple 5 years later, if they were still married, they actually said, "Oh, we're in a good marriage now." So you can
we barely remember what it was like to struggle.
So you can go through a really hard season, but that doesn't mean that's for your forever story.